me now to discuss all of this, former GOP national spokesperson Elizabeth Pipko, Democratic strategist Antjuan Seawright, and senior editor-at-large for Newsweek, Josh Hammer. Great to see all of you. Thank you so much for joining us. So, Elizabeth, President Trump earlier today responded to these accusations and questions about how his income has ballooned and these accusations of corruption. Take a listen.
Well, you know, I don't do anything having to do with my business. My kids run it. I put a lot of money. I had a lot of money, and I have a lot of money, and I've made money. I mean, there's nothing illegal. There's nothing wrong with it.
Elizabeth, what's your response to the criticism over the current disclosures that we're seeing with the president's worth?
Well, Katie, as you know, I think a lot of times when it comes to Donald Trump, a lot of non-stories become stories because, of course, he's the man in the Oval Office and the man everybody loves to talk about. I'm sorry, there is no story here. This was not a leak of any kind. It was a disclosure. He let the entire world know that he's successful, that he continues to be successful. I would argue one of the reasons he was elected is because he's such a successful businessman. And I would also argue that folks on both sides of the aisle have been doing this for years, whether it's Rick Scott or Nancy Pelosi, folks that are very much capable of being successful on the outside are doing so while they serve the American people. Very often, very well, yes. By the way. Hell, Bernie Sanders, everyone's favorite socialist, became a millionaire while he was serving the public. I'm sorry, but this is not a story. People hate because it's Donald Trump, but there's nothing here except the man who's choosing to be successful both inside the Oval Office and out.
So, Antjuan, you know, President Trump's assets are managed through a blind trust. There's zero evidence that the stock trades were based on insider information. But even if they were, which, again, there's no evidence to show that, is that really any different than what people like Nancy Pelosi have been doing for decades?
Well, first of all, the executive branch is different than the legislative branch in terms of the rules they're governed by. Second of all, this is the biggest load of corruption I've seen perhaps in my political lifetime. And there's a culture of corruption that surrounds this president. It's not just the almost 3,700 trades. It's not just the $1 billion he's made since being in office. And yet the people that voted for him have gone arguably poor because of him and his lack of attention to the economy. But it's also the no-bid contracts for the taxpayer ballroom. It's the no-bid contracts for the reflection pool. It's his family members. It's the millionaire-billionaire dinners and Mar-a-Lago and other things that make him corrupt, and this culture of corruption continues to surround him. And I think it's malpractice for your guests to say that, well, this is the same as other members of Congress should be treated, because when you work in the administration, you have to give up certain assets and the right to do certain things.
Which he did, which he has done. As you said, the business has been handed over to the Trump Organization, which is run now by Eric Trump.
That's why he had to disclose this information. He is personally benefiting from the presidency. Democrats, Republicans, and independents agree on this.
All right. So, Josh, Democrats are objecting to President Trump, but they object to generally any kind of American making money and having success in the capitalist system. So what is your response to this new accusation against the president that he's the most corrupt in American history, that somehow he's the only person who's ever benefited from being in the office? What say you?
Well, first of all, Katie, he's obviously not the only person who's ever been able to benefit from public office. That's just the nature of public office going back since time immemorial. I think everyone here on this panel probably knows that. As far as this current disclosure, I agree with Elizabeth. I view it essentially as a nothing burger. What I will say, though, is I have a slightly more nuanced position. Here's where Antjuan might start nodding his head. I think that there are some things that have happened over the course of this presidency that raise reasonable eyebrows. For instance, you had the Emirati investment in WLF a few days prior to the inauguration, 49% stake. You have this Qatari gift of an Air Force One jet. So I think that there are reasonable questions. For instance, Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff are currently J.D. Vance's right-hand men when it comes to Iran negotiations. Kushner's been involved with a lot of Middle East investments. Is there any cash flowing when it comes to these individuals there? So I'm not saying that there's fire, but there is enough circumstantial smoke, I think, so that the administration probably should communicate in a fully transparent way when it comes to some of these questions. For instance, Kay, this has been a very transparent administration when it comes to a lot of things: Epstein files, UFOs. Why not deliver that same kind of full transparency to a lot of these questions when it comes to the Emiratis, the Qataris, and so forth?
Yeah, so Elizabeth, on that point, I mean, Democrats have made it clear that if they were to take back the House of Representatives, that they plan investigation after investigation, including going after President Trump and impeaching him, even though they still haven't found any crime against him. But is Josh correct when he says, look, there are some conflicts of interest here. There may not be criminal behavior, but there are conflicts of interest when you have your Middle East envoys who have heavily invested lots of money in the countries that they're supposed to be negotiating with over a nuclear program.
Well, look, Josh is correct in the sense that he's allowed to have any opinion that he wants. That's what makes our country great. You can think that what Donald Trump does is horrible. You may not like him. You don't have to like anyone in the Oval Office, but that doesn't mean that what he's doing is wrong nor illegal. Like you said, this man has been investigated time and time and time again. I guarantee you if Democrats get the chance, they will, in fact, investigate him one more time. I can tell you no one is more aware of that fact, unfortunately, than Donald Trump and his family members who have been put through hell by Democrats who tried to do everything that they could to keep him out of that Oval Office. And I think this is the most transparent presidency up until this point. It will continue to be because he knows that if in the midterms Democrats gain control, they will in fact do just that immediately. But I would like to remind everyone, this is not a man who pardoned himself nor a family member. That was somebody else.
So, Antjuan, just in terms of the issues here for Democrats going into the midterms, I mean, shouldn't they be focusing on things like the economy and policy positions? It just seems like there's going to be this fatigue of Democrats continuing to accuse the president of something when they've been doing this for 10 years and they've been unsuccessful in stopping him.
Well, I won't even address the unseriousness from your guest calling this administration transparent.
I think she's serious. We don't have to attack people for not being serious.
I want to address the unseriousness to that. But to your point about what Democrats should be doing, Democrats are doing what Republicans should be doing. That's addressing the affordability crisis brought to you and sponsored by your neighborhood Republican Party and Donald Trump. We're going to weed out corruption. We're going to lower costs, and we're going to deal with health care. Three things that this current majority in this White House promised to do on the campaign trail but have yet to do, and that's why the American people are feeling the economic hardships that they feel because of the lack of action from this administration and from this White House.
Yeah, Josh, it seems like Democrats would rather talk about the president than, you know, radical socialist communists taking over their party. Josh, final word to you.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what they've been doing for years and years and years, Katie. I mean, literally ever since the golden escalator descent down in the summer of 2015, they've been focused on Trump more than they've been focused on any other individual, frankly, probably in modern American political history. They call him the Orange Man, the fascist, the Nazi, the Stalinist, the this, the that there. So, yes, there definitely is a broader narrative where I think these allegations of the most corrupt administration in history, which is just classic MS Now, CNN fare, that fits into a broader paradigm of just TDS on steroids. It's all Trump all the time there. I think Antjuan probably should tell what he's saying to us here on the panel, to his own party. You guys probably should focus a little more on the economy, a little more on the affordability, a little more on prices, inflation, immigration, frankly, all of the above. Focus on that. Stop focusing obsessively on the Orange Man who you guys love to hate.
Where have you been living? Because that's all Democrats have been talking about.
That's not what I see.
The majority party has not. And yes, the legislative branch has a responsibility to provide oversight to the executive branch.
All
Unfortunately, that's not happening now because
Joe Biden.
The legislative branch has been a rubber stamp to the executive branch.
All right. Well, we got to run. We got to leave it there. Elizabeth Pipko, Antjuan Seawright, and Josh Hammer, thank you so much for joining me. Great to see you all.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.